There are stories that are terrifying, others are tragic, but then there are some stories, rare ones, that feel like a tear in the soul of a nation. Stories that leave behind ghosts, not just of people, but of questions that never get answered. This is one of those stories. February 25, 1957, Philadelphia. The morning was cold and gray. The sky hung low like a curtain of silence. A young college student was cutting through a wooded area in the quiet neighborhood of Fox Chase. He was taking a shortcut, a path he'd walked before. Just trees, just mud, just shadows. But then, something different. Something wrong. Up ahead, near a cluster of brambles, sat a large cardboard box, water-stained, torn open on one side. It had been tossed there like trash, but it wasn't empty. Inside that box was a little boy. He was no older than 4 or 5, pale, naked, bruised. His hair had been crudely chopped, his skin marked with cuts and scars. Someone had wrapped him in a flannel blanket, as if trying to give him warmth after death, or hide what they'd done. There was no blood, no name, no one nearby, no mother screaming for her lost child, no missing persons report, no shoes, no dignity. That boy, unidentified for decades, would come to be known only as the boy in the box. The police arrived quickly. They examined the scene and took the body in. The box itself had once contained a bassinet sold by JCPenney, a symbol of new life. It had been repurposed to discard death. The child's body was so light he weighed just 30 pounds. He was small, underfed, likely malnourished for most of his life. His hair had been cut recently, but not neatly. It looked rushed, panicked, like someone trying to erase him. His hands and feet were wrinkled, suggesting he may have been submerged in water shortly before or after death. The cause of death? Blunt force trauma to the skull, a savage blow, a child beaten and tossed like garbage. But that was only the beginning of the nightmare. The medical examiner noted scars, one under his chin, another near his groin, a third on his ankle. Some looked surgical, others not. He'd suffered. That much was clear. The police were hopeful at first. Surely someone must be missing this child, a neighbor, a teacher, a family, a community. But no one came forward. No child matching his description was reported missing, not in Philadelphia, not in Pennsylvania, not anywhere in the United States. It was like he'd never existed at all. Flyers with the boy's face were posted all over the city. Investigators printed 400,000 copies and even included them in utility bills. They placed ads in newspapers, sent images across state lines, consulted orphanages, hospitals, adoption agencies. They dressed the boy and photographed him post-mortem, in hopes that a more peaceful appearance might jog someone's memory. But still, nothing. The story began to grip the public. America fell in love with this little boy it didn't know. People wrote poems, sent letters, held vigils. His photo, those haunting eyes, those bruised lips, was seared into the minds of millions. And yet, he remained a ghost. The police ran down every lead, but the case slowly froze over. Years passed, then decades. Theories began to swirl like storm clouds. Some were detailed, others outlandish. One involved a foster home just blocks from where the boy was found. Detectives believed the child might have lived there, and that his death was being covered up to avoid scandal. But there was no concrete proof, just whispers. The home's owners denied everything. Then, in the 1980s, a woman, known in police records only as M, came forward with a terrifying confession. She claimed that when she was a child, her mother had bought a little boy. Yes, bought him, like property. She said the boy was kept in their basement, beaten, neglected, and ultimately killed in a fit of rage. Her mother had, according to her, cut his hair and dumped the body in the woods. M knew about scars the public didn't. She described the blanket, the box, the bruises. Police were shaken. Was this it? But the woman's story began to unravel. She changed details. Dates didn't line up. Her mental health was unstable. And just like that, another lead collapsed. More time passed. The case was reopened over and over. In 1998, the boy was exhumed for the first time. Investigators hoped to get mitochondrial DNA, Technology was improving and hope hadn't fully died. They extracted a DNA profile and tried matching it to any known missing children. Still nothing. And so, the boy was buried again in Ivy Hill Cemetery under a simple headstone. America's unknown child, it read. Years passed, but the case never disappeared. Then came the era of forensic genealogy, a revolution in solving cold cases. In 2021, the boy was exhumed a second time. Forensic specialists working with tiny strands of hair and bone built a complete DNA profile. They compared it to entries in public databases, GEDmatch, Ancestry.com, and started to trace his family tree, cousin by cousin, generation by generation. And in late 2022, they had a name. After 65 years, the boy in the box had an identity: Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Born on January 13, 1953. He was a real child with a real birth certificate, just a boy from West Philadelphia. Authorities made the announcement in December of 2022. For the very first time in history, the public finally knew who the boy was. They had his full name, his parents were identified, and they were still alive at the time of the discovery. He had siblings. He'd lived, and then, well, he vanished. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. Even after the name was revealed, there were no arrests, no public statements from the family, no missing persons report had ever been filed, not one neighbor, not one doctor, not a single family member had come forward in the decades that followed his death. The silence was absolutely deafening. Law enforcement has stated that they believe they know what happened to Joseph, but as of now, no charges have been filed. Some suspect he was born out of wedlock, possibly unwanted. Others think abuse in the home led to his death, and a cover-up followed. Maybe his parents were scared, maybe they didn't care, maybe someone else was responsible entirely. But someone out there knows, and someone stayed silent for over half a century. Even today, in 2025, the case remains technically open, unsolved. And while Joseph now has a name, he still has no justice. It's hard to describe what the story represents. It's not just a murder, it's not just a mystery, it's a reminder of how society can fail the most vulnerable. A reminder of how easy it is to vanish when no one is watching. Joseph was a child. He should have had a life, school, friends, dreams. But instead, his life ended in a cold box, in the middle of the woods, while the world looked the other way. He became a symbol of neglect, of sorrow, of America's lost children, but also of hope. Because after 6 decades, the truth clawed its way out of the dirt. Technology, perseverance, and the refusal to let a boy be forgotten brought us this far. And maybe, just maybe, someone will still come forward. Maybe the truth will be spoken aloud, and not just whispered in dead police files and dusty court records. Until then, we remember Joseph Augustus Zarelli not as the boy in the box, but as a boy who lived, who mattered, who deserved better, and whose story is not over yet. Rest in peace, Joseph. The world finally knows your name, and we won't stop until we know the truth.